Wait, okay. So, hello everyone. I'm Claudia Cuttano and I am a PhD student from Politecnico di Torino. I want to thank Voxel 51 and Jimmy to give me the possibility to present our latest work, SANSA, Unleashing the Hidden Semantics in Segment Anything 2 for Few-Shot Segmentation, a work that has been accepted and presented at NeurIPS 2025 as a spotlight paper. So before describing our paper, I would like to spend really few words to describe the current landscape in computer vision, but more in particular in segmentation. So as probably most of you know, one of the most powerful models that we have in segmentation is Segment Anything, or SAM, a model that has been released by Meta almost 3 years ago. So this is a foundation model for promptable segmentation trained on large-scale data, so on billions of images. And this model introduces a new segmentation paradigm where we can really segment anything given flexible prompts like points, boxes, or masks. So as you can see here, a user can introduce like a click, a point on an object, and then the model will automatically produce the corresponding segmentation mask for the specific object. And then Meta released a follow-up of Segment Anything 2, or SAM2, which is basically extending the capabilities of Segment Anything from static images to videos. So it's introducing a memory mechanism that enables to propagate segmentation masks across time in a video. As you can see here, we can again prompt the input, so we can insert like a point on the cup, a point on the hand. The model will produce the corresponding mask exactly how in the same way as Segment Anything 1 would do. But then the model is also able to track this specific mask across time in the video. So you can see that this family of model is particularly powerful because it really enables to unlock a lot of downstream tasks like image editing or data annotation. But what we can do with this model is still to interact with each single image separately. So we have to provide specific prompt, so for example, a single click on each single image to obtain the masks. So we started thinking about this even before SANSA, even before this NeurIPS paper, with the work that we presented at CVPR 2025. This model was SAMWise, which is basically a model that is enhancing Segment Anything 2 to accept also language prompts. So as you can see in this short demo of SAMWise in action, now the model is able to process a video and a textual description. So here we have a video from The Lord of the Rings, and we can type a textual description where we are describing the object that we want to segment. And then the model is able to interpret this query to produce the corresponding mask. And we can use descriptive queries like the tall man in gray, but also we can describe the object or the person based on the action that is performing, like the man who is packing stuff. And then we have SANSA. So we as humans, we don't really need to assign explicit class names to communicate a given concept. I can just show you an example of an object, and then you will automatically understand the concept, and you would also be able to recognize this concept in new images. So in this sense, a visual prompt is simply an example that defines what to look for. And what we do with SANSA is to enhance Segment Anything 2 to accept these visual prompts. So this, of course, has a lot of downstream applications, but first of all, we have automatic data annotation, because let's imagine of having a very big data set containing thousands of images and a base set of classes. So given each class, we have the corresponding segmentation mask in our entire database. And now let's imagine of wanting to add a new segmentation class in this dataset. What we should do is either to manually annotate all these images to provide the corresponding segmentation mask for this new class in the dataset, or to use a promptable model like segment anything at image level. So we should, like we want to segment all the dogs, we will have to click on each dog in our thousand of images. So you can see that this is practically unfeasible. So with visual prompt, we can instead segment a single reference image. Like here, we have a single example of a boat, and then the model will automatically propagate the annotation across the entire data set. Here you can see that we can draw a rectangle around a bike, or draw a scribble on the dog, or click on the boat. So we can simply provide an example to the model to understand which is the concept that we want to segment. Of course, we are not the first who are trying to solve this problem. Recent works are trying to solve this task that is named in literature few-shot segmentation by designing two stages pipelines. First of all, we have a semantic model. So the most famous model that is highly semantic that we know is DynoV2. We can use this model to obtain a semantic correspondence between the two images. Like here, we have an example of a cat, and then we have our target image, that is the image that we want to segment. So we can use DynoV2, for example, to compute a cosine similarity between all the patches of the target image and a prototype for this cat to obtain some regions of the images that are very similar. So we obtain, like, for example, a matching point. And then we use a promptable model like segment anything to produce the final segmentation mask given this point. But this, of course, has several limitations. So we have this two-stage pipeline, and for this reason, we have also more point of failures, because if DynoV2 fails in obtaining the correct semantic correspondence between the two images, then, of course, the segmentation model will not be able to produce the corresponding mask. Then we have additional components to consider, some heuristics to make these two models communicate. And finally, we have, of course, a higher computational complexity, because we have the reference and target image, so we need two forward inside the DynoV2 model, and then another forward for the target image inside the segment anything model. What we want to do instead is to solve entirely the task in a single model. And what we want to do is to solve this task entirely inside Segment Anything 2, because of course Segment Anything 2 has strong segmentation capabilities, but we also think that Segment Anything 2 has these feature matching capabilities. So we can see that from a different perspective. We have Segment Anything 2. We know that is a foundation model for interactive instant segmentation in videos. Given a first annotated frame, it can track and segment the same object across frames in the video. Like here, we have a video of a boat that is moving to the left. And we have the first annotation for the first frame. As you can see, the model is able to track this boat across frames. So you can see that actually the model is performing a feature matching mechanism to propagate the mask. But this feature matching is based on appearance-based similarity, because we want to really focus on this specific boat. If another boat will then appear in the video, the model should not focus, should not shift its focus to the new boat. So we really need to focus on this specific boat based on its appearance. So our question is, can SAM2 generalize beyond this appearance-driven object tracking to perform instead semantic tracking based on the shared concepts across images? Here we have the same first boat that is annotated, and then we have different images of different boats in completely new scenarios, different type of boats, and we want to see if Segment Anything 2 is somehow able to propagate this mask across these new images. Here we have the architecture of SAM2. We have the input video, we have the image encoder that is used to extract the features from these images, and then we have the prompt encoder that can take in input the mask or the point or the box for the first frame. And then we have the other part of the architecture that is the one that is performing the memory attention mechanism. So that is allowing the model to propagate this mask from the first frame to the next one. And so we start by doing a simple preliminary experiment. We have our reference, so this is our visual example. We have this example of a cat, and we have the corresponding segmentation mask for this visual example. And then we have our target image, the unlabeled image that we want to segment. We want to obtain in output the segmentation mask for this cat. So what we simply do is to concatenate these two images to create a fake video, a pseudo video. So this is not a real video. We just pretend this to be a real video. And we forward this video inside the frozen SAM2. And we just want to see if the model will propagate the mask from the first cat to the second one. And we repeat this experiment twice on two different types of datasets. We start from medical datasets that have low semantic variability and high visual similarity. You can see here we have the mask for the lung, and then we want to see if the model is able to propagate this mask into new target images depicting lungs. As you can see here, we have high visual similarity because, of course, the lungs are pretty much the same. And then we repeat this experiment on dataset with low visual similarity but high semantic variability. These are the dataset that we really care about, dataset like Coco or Elvis, where the object can have different representation. Here you can see the first boat and then different type of boats. And we want also here to see if the model is able to propagate the mask. And what we found is that on dataset with very low semantic variability and high visual similarity, like in the case of lungs, SAM2 even outperforms state-of-the-art methods that are exactly trained for the specific task. But then on dataset with a high semantic shift like Coco or Elvis, the performance really drops. So we can have a very straightforward conclusion. Maybe SegmentAnything2 has not learned discriminative representation in its class-agnostic pre-training, making it unfit for tasks requiring semantic alignment like few-shot segmentation. And actually, if you see here the features, we have some images and then we are visualizing the features by means of PCA, where we are plotting the first three components mapped to RGB. You can see that we cannot really see a semantic discriminability between objects. All the things are overlapped together. However, we point out that the pre-training of SegmentAnything2, that is basically matching objects across frames in a video, is very similar to self-supervised objectives like the one of DynoV2. These models are basically trained to force feature invariance between augmentation of the same image, and this objective is known to produce semantic features. So we ask, is it really true that SegmentAnything2 lacks semantics? What if this semantic structure is actually there, but just entangled with other signals? And so to answer this question, we did a very simple experiment, a simple linear probing. We are keeping SAM2 architecture entirely frozen. We extract visual features from the image encoder, and then we put a linear layer on top of these features, and we train this bottleneck projection for semantic segmentation. And what we actually find is that the performance of SegmentAnything2 are really high on this semantic segmentation. So this means that we can just train a linear layer on top of the features to obtain very high performance on a semantic task, performance that are higher than a model that has been trained on a supervised way on ImageNet. So a simple linear probe achieves strong semantic segmentation performance on the frozen SegmentAnything2 features. So this provides clear evidence that this semantic information is present in SegmentAnything2. Even if it is not explicitly exposed, these semantics can be revealed by a simple linear projection. So we have a hidden semantics that is entangled with signals that are useful for the SegmentAnything2 model to perform its original task of video object segmentation, but this semantic structure is separable. So we can access this semantic structure, and this is what we want to obtain, and actually what we obtain in the end. So these features that are highly discriminative. So this is again a PCA of the features. Now with our SANSA feature, you can see that all the dogs are mapped together in the feature space, as well as the frisbee and the people and so on. And given this finding, this means that this semantic structure can be disentangled through lightweight bottleneck projections, like, for example, simple adapters. In this case, we used adaptformer, that is a simple down projection followed by a nonlinearity and an up projection. And then, since the semantic structure is already there, we don't need to learn these semantics from scratch. So this should be learnable from a set of base classes and then should generalize to novel categories. And here you can see what actually happens. We have our image encoder, we have the adapter that is the one that we are training, so we are only learning these bottleneck projection weights. And then what we obtain are features that are highly semantic. You can see here that we have the feature corresponding to the two images of the two cats, and you can see that the cats are mapped together inside the same space. And so here we have the memory attention mechanism that is the one that is enabling to propagate the mask. This is essentially a cross attention between the current features, so the features related to the image that we want to segment, and the previous feature. So the features related to the first image, the image for which we have the segmentation mask. And so this memory attention mechanism is repurposed from appearance-based similarity to semantic similarity. And what we found is that this semantics is emerging not only at object level, like here on the left, but this is also emerging at part level. And you can see here we have two images of two bikes. We can visualize their representations. As you can see, all the pixels belonging to the same semantic concept are clustered all together in a coherent way. And these representations are also consistent across different images. In terms of results, we tested SANSA on strict few-shot segmentation benchmarks. Here, the bottleneck projections are trained on a base set of classes, and then the model is tested on novel classes. And as you can see here, we really outperform all the previous solutions. And what we also did was to test our model across different domains and style shifts. Here there are some nice examples. You can see that we can provide the model with an example of the dog, and then the model is able to recognize a dog even in a cartoon image. Then we test SANSA on few-shot promptable segmentation. You can see that given that we are keeping SAM2 entirely frozen, we are also maintaining its capability to generate mask from any prompt, like point, scribble, or boxes. So we don't really need to annotate the visual example with a costly pixel level mask. You can see here that if we want to annotate all the umbrellas in our target image with a mask, we should also segment the first umbrella. Instead, we can simply click on the umbrella. The model will understand that we are referring to the entire umbrella and then will recognize and segment this concept in the new images. And we can even draw a rectangle or just drawing a scribble. We compared with the only method that exists that is also capable of doing few-shot segmentation with these types of prompt. As you can see, we are consistently outperforming this method, especially like on point segmentation. You can see that we have an improvement of 15 points. Then we test on part segmentation. As I was telling you before, this semantic is emerging not only at object level, but also at part level. So let's imagine that we have an image where we want to segment the head of a cat. What we can do is to simply provide a mask for the head, and the model will automatically understand that we are not referring to the entire cat, but just to this specific part of the animal. And as you can see, we compared with previous solutions, and also here we are outperforming them. I also want to spend a few words about efficiency. So we were seeing at the beginning the previous solutions that are basically two-step pipelines where we have a feature matching part done by DynoV2, and then a segmentation part where we are using segment anything to provide the final segmentation mask. As I was saying, this is particularly inefficient because we have to forward both the reference and target image inside INOV2, and then we have to forward the target image inside segment anything. Instead, what we are doing is to unify the entire task, feature matching and segmentation, within a single model that is segment anything too. So we are reusing the same features both for feature matching and segmentation. And as a result, we are 5 times smaller and 3 times faster. This has a particular impact not when we are segmenting a single image, but if we want to use this model to really annotate like thousands of images. And finally, we are releasing a universal model for in-context segmentation. This model has been trained on a lot of data, Coco, Elvis, Ade, and Paco. This is open source and is a model that is fully promptable, so you can use this model with all the prompts that you can imagine, points, boxes, scribble, or masks. You can use this model to segment both object and parts. And we also released a demo. This is the one that you can see here on the right, where you can upload your reference image, so your visual example. You can upload your target image, the image for which you want to produce the segmentation mask, and you can simply play with the model to see what happens.